Doug Ford is winning the Conservative Civil War in Canada, and I'm going to tell you why. Recently, Ford called out the ownership of the Crown Royal brand and poured out a bottle of the Canadian whiskey on live television. He also suggested that Crown Royal ownership was, and I quote, dumb as a bag of hammers. Now, why does this mean he's winning? I'm going to explain that to you. Plus, a little bit later, as a bonus, I have a bit of a funny side story that I think you'll find amusing. I'm Steve Sanford, you're watching Dominion Report. Crown Royal Whiskey has been produced in Canada since the brand was launched in 1939. Its production facility is in Manitoba, but the bottling plant is in Ontario, where it employs about 200 people. The parent company of Crown Royal is British-based Diageo, who has owned the brand since 2000, and they announced that they are closing the Canadian bottling plant and moving that process to the United States. Now, for sure, the US is a much bigger market, and for that reason alone, not necessarily the current tariff climate, it probably makes financial sense to move the bottling plant. Diageo, which owns a number of major liquor brands, has also reported a 28% drop in overall profits. And this is fairly universal among spirit brands right now. Essentially, today's young adults don't drink as much as yesteryear's young adults. That's me. I'm a yesteryear young adult, but I digress. So really the move is pretty much about consolidating their multi-brand bottling process and clawing back some of their drop in profits. The tariffs maybe played a part, but likely weren't the primary factor. Of course, that doesn't make any of that any less challenging for the 200 families who are going to be probably out of work. But I know what you're asking. Steve, what does this have to do with this civil war in Canadian conservatism? We're about to get to that. But first, a real quick question. Will this situation impact your decision to purchase Crown Royal? Let me know in the comments below. Okay, here we go. We've spoken on the channel before about the division among Canadian Conservatives. It goes back to the Reform Party, which was essentially a right-wing populist evangelical protest party that was established by Preston Manning in the 1980s. It was mostly Alberta-based and was spawned out of the frustration that the establishment, Progressive Conservative Party at that time, wasn't right-wing enough. After growing big enough to eventually become the official opposition party, the Reform Party and the PC Party ultimately merged. But the cultural difference between the factions remains in place to this day. I've got a video which goes into this in more detail, and I'll put a link below in case you're interested. Both Stephen Harper and Pierre Poilievre come from the Reform side of the current makeup of the party. And that side of the party has, for the most part, refused to vociferously condemn Donald Trump, condemn MAGA, condemn the rapid slide to fascism, condemn the threats of the 51st state, and to condemn the unwarranted and unprecedented tariff war. In my opinion, that's why Poilievre and the Conservatives lost the federal election. Now, why haven't they condemned all of those things enough? I don't know. But it can only be one of two reasons. Either they are concerned about alienating Canadian Conservative voters who are also MAGA supporters, or they are actual MAGA supporters. You can decide which you think is more likely. But what they have underestimated in Canada is the general feeling among Canadians about the behavior of the US government since Trump returned to office. Canadians are pissed off. I want you to think back to your preteen years. You may have had that one best friend that you'll never forget. You and your best friend hung out all summer long, every day, doing fun things, riding bikes, playing basketball, shopping at the mall, street hockey, getting Slurpees, whatever it was you were doing, you did it together. You did everything together. You even did nothing together, just hanging out. You were inseparable and you were unbreakably loyal. Now just imagine one day that your best friend disappears for no reason, totally just ghosts you. And then you see that friend hanging out with the neighborhood bully. And then that friend publicly announces that they want to punch you in the face and steal your allowance. That is how Canadians feel right now. For 80 years, our two countries have been neighbors. We have been friends. We have been supporters. We've shared the longest undefended border in the world, in the history of the world. We've been each other's trading partners, largest trading partners, and we've been essential military and security partners. It has literally been the most successful international partnership between two countries in all of history. And then, suddenly, they flip the script. They want to annex us. They want to invade us. They want to hurt us financially. They want to divide us, which, by the way, they're actively still trying to do with regard to the Alberta separation issue, but that's a topic for another day. What's happening in Canada is a guttural reaction to a sudden and unexpected betrayal by a friend. Now, we Canadians are known to be polite, but do not mistake politeness for weakness. We are not ones to hang around waiting for our flighty friend to rediscover the mutual benefits of being friends. There's lots of other countries out there, and it seems that we collectively agreed that we need to expand our friendship with those countries and put our friendship with the United States behind us. That was the core issue of the federal election, and that is what Doug Ford is tapping into. F you, United States. F you, MAGA. F you, Donald Trump. F you, Crown Royal. F you, any corporation that vacates Canada in favor of the U.S. Ford's a pretty smart guy. He made good use of the situation as a politician to strengthen his position as a fighter for Canada in the battle against MAGA USA. And it worked. His stunt, which was pouring out the Crown Royal bottle, and his insult, calling them dumb as a bag of hammers, received nationwide coverage. I cannot even envision Pierre Poilievre doing anything like that. I can't imagine him calling out Crown Royal management or calling them dumb as a bag of hammers. Or even without the props and the insult, just condemning Crown Royal, condemning MAGA, condemning Donald Trump, condemning the USA, condemning just any corporation that moves jobs out of Canada with any kind of believable passion. Poilievre spends his time condemning whatever Mark Carney and the Liberals are doing, and that is why Ford is winning the Conservative Civil War. Now, earlier I promised you a funny side note story, and here it is. One thing I've heard recently that really made me laugh was Poilievre supporters quite hilariously referring to Doug Ford as a liberal. These people are so much just black and white thinkers that the enemy of Poilievre is automatically a liberal. Ford and Poilievre certainly have no love for each other, and that comes out in their statements and their actions. So Poilievre supporters see Ford as an enemy, which I guess he is. But then they automatically conflate that with being a liberal. Enemy and liberal can be mutually exclusive here. The logic being employed is astounding to me, but it speaks to the sports fan style tribalism that has infected our political leanings, and I actually have a video about that too. If you want to know how liberal Doug Ford actually is, just take a look at his policies in Ontario, especially the ones on education and healthcare. He ain't no liberal. Talk about being dumb as a bag of hammers. Just saying. Circling this back to Crown Royal, we are all going to have to decide whether we're going to pour out that bottle that many of us have in our liquor cabinets. And what about those purple Crown Royal bags that hold our Scrabble letters? Maybe it shouldn't be a bag of letters. Maybe instead it should be a bag of hammers?